let's get started. We are going to talk about empathy in the age of artificial intelligence. In a second. We're going to get there in a second. I want to tell you that I love being in this country. I love New Zealand so much. It's so inspiring to me. I'm going to show you a few things that I think are awesome about New Zealand. Are you guys awake yet? Yeah. Yes? All right, let's go. Let's do this thing. They didn't tell me I was getting the hangover slot. But that's okay. We're gonna work through it, people, okay? All right, I'm going to show you some things that excite me so much about this country. Oh, that was my heartbeat. Okay, here we go. Shrek the sheep. Oh my God, you know what this guy is? This guy is a disruptor. He's not conforming to some flock, somebody else's outdated notion of what sheepiness is. He's out there on his own, doing his own thing. He's himself, right? I love this guy. You guys have a weird thing about giving names to weird animals. It's cool. This guy, Taika Waititi, what an amazing person. Like, he's a global creative superpower all by himself. And the thing that kills me about him is look how he's rocking those shorts. Oh my gosh, what an amazing guy. You're prime minister. Ugh. You're prime minister. This looks like a catalog for awesomeness right here. These three people. Do you call that like the prime baby? She's incredible. She's putting all these programs together for homelessness, for education, for a data-driven approach to wellness and well-being. It almost hurts me to see how awesome she is. The All Blacks. Can we talk about the All Blacks? I don't know anything about rugby. Know nothing about rugby. You know the whole thing they do? Coach is going to give me some advice there. That whole thing they do with the scrum, like where they're pressing on each other for like 5 minutes and like nothing happens, and the ball kind of pops out at the end. I'm like, that's not how I do a scrum. The thing I love about this guy, Kieran Reed, is that when he's on the injured list, he puts on the Waterboy jacket. Isn't that cool? Like, what he's saying there is that the mission of this team, the mission that we're working on together, is greater than myself, and I'm going to do whatever I have to support a greater purpose than the one I have myself. To me, that's a real great exemplification of empathy. So let's talk about that. Empathy is something that's super important to me. It's important to me as a person, but also as a technologist, because it's the first thing that we need to think about when we're building an experience. It's not the ones and zeros. It's not the code. It's not the project plan. It's not the sprint iteration plan. It is what is the level of humanity we're going to put into an experience, and how is that going to affect the lives of the people we're building that experience for? I break it down into 3 components. Simple language. Humility and include. Oh, what happened? No. Oh, man. It's a slide. It's a slide. Don't worry. I'm sorry, this is a cheap trick. I do this a lot. It looks really intimidating, that huge on the screen. I'm sorry that I just did you. I apologize for any sense memories that I just evoked in you about whatever it is that you lost when you saw this. I talk about simple language because simple language is not this, right? If you think about this experience, also known as the most hated software screen in the history of humankind, it is nothing but language, and the language is horrible. We changed this. We changed it to something that was a lot better, right? This is the blue screen of death for Windows 8 and past. This is actually the Windows 10 version, and it shows you some simple language for how to approach speaking to people about a bad situation that they're in. You know, it's sort of the software equivalent of going to see the mortician. It's like you never really want to see that guy, but if you do, you want him to be nice and empathetic with the situation that you're in. So this is 2 screens that represent 2 different experiences, but what it actually represents is a sea change, a change in culture, a change where we at Microsoft had to really change the approach of how we were doing things and why. And for us to accept this and say, yeah, this is good, was a huge culture change for us that we're still working on. Culture change is never done. You can reset the direction at any time, but the actual work of it is something that you continually need to work on and improve. But look at the difference. Who understands something like the end user manually generated the crash dump? What does that even mean? I have no idea. I've been talking about the screen for years. I have no idea what that means. Right? Your PC ran into a problem, needs to restart. That's simple. We have many ways for you to access this screen and get more information about how to get out of your current situation. All right, so how do we make culture change? We think about principles, about the things that we need to help people understand, give them tools to understand how we want to change our culture. These are the Microsoft Voice principles. They're warm and relaxed, crisp and clear, ready to lend a hand. These are all human values that we put into 3 simple sentences that allows us to use them as tests against all the things that we create. Why am I talking about it here? It's because AI is built on a foundation of humanity when it's done correctly. Let's take a look at an error message. This is an error message for Microsoft Edge if you're not connected to the internet, right? It's very simple. You're not connected and the web just isn't the same without you. Let's get you back online. That is a message about being welcoming, of saying, you know, over here in the internet, it needs you. It needs you to be good. Come on, let's go. Let's get together. What about AI? Well, AI, if you think about it, is the UX of the future. All these digital assistants are powered by AI, and the interface is the conversation. That's it. Right? There's no visual. So you have to design and guide a user through an experience simply by the fact of the conversation. It turns out this is something that we're very good at because it's the latest UX, but it's also the first UX. Right? It's the first thing that we ever learned how to do. You know, when we were messing around in caves and forests, you know, we had to make social contracts about what we're going to do. Are you going to kill me? Are you going to help me? Help me, good. I need food, I need shelter, I need to reproduce. Which one do you want to do? Right? This was the first UX, right? And now, when we're designing UX in conversational agents, we have to think about what's the humanity that we put into every interaction that we create. So let's talk about humility for a second. Humility is the idea that whatever that customer is trying to achieve, that's the greater purpose. The great purpose is not for us to build awesome technology that people go, oh my gosh, and post on Twitter about saying this is fantastic. The point is for them, our customers, to be fantastic, and our coworkers, and the people that we support, right, in our circles of influence. If you talk to Cortana, Cortana is our digital assistant. It's built into Windows 10 and our phones. You can put on our Android iPhones right now. If you say, hey, Cortana, I'm feeling sad.
It may be small comfort, but I'm here for you.
So that's a little bit of empathy. It's a digital assistant. We want to make sure it's clear that the assistant, right, is not a human being, but even that little bit of modesty, right, that little bit of sympathy is something that we design for. There are people who come up with all sorts of strings for these experiences where we don't know what emotional level people are going to come at us with, but we have designed a matrix of things to address them in this way. This is the virtual support agent. This is something my team works on. And what it is, if you go to support.microsoft.com, again, and this is in the United States, if you go on there and start asking it to help you with issues, when we do this correctly, and this is early days, and it's hard work, what it will do is save you the weight of trying to go figure out our stuff and just help you manage that for you. So cancel subscription is a big issue for us. And what we've done is design dialogues to address that don't force you to go somewhere else. So let's watch it for a second. Okay, so this is me typing earlier. Typing cancel my subscription. Now the virtual agent is going to find my particular subscription information because I've signed in already. And that's my subscription for Office 365. Okay, so I select that one. And then what happens is it goes and gets information about that. And now what it says is I'm paid through November 12, 2018, which is true. That's my account, and that's what I'm paid for. And then it gives me a bunch of options, which are further down below, of how I can operate on that directly. Now, what that does is remove a lot of the weight that I have as a customer for figuring out your stuff, Microsoft. Like, I don't have to go to some other site, figure out what I have to do, where I have to go, how I work with your UX, because the whole operation handles within the context of a conversation where you don't have to figure stuff out. We just present you the information that's relevant to you. Here's another experience that, this is very early days. We just kind of released this in a limited way, so I'm just going to show you a screenshot of it. But this is called Cortana Show Me, and this is an app that you can download from our store in limited release. It's not here yet. But what it does is when you ask Cortana to show you how to do something, it actually opens up your computer, takes it over, and runs it through the operation while you're sitting there watching it. Right? It tells you what to do. There's a little highlighted blue mouse that goes over the actual places in your computer and flip the switches for you. So you're sitting there having this experience of watching the computer show you as if it were a person showing you what to do, which kind of saves you the effort of like running down the hall and getting your 13-year-old niece or whatever it is that you use for help. It sits there and walks you through things step by step. Part of the reason that we created this experience is the subject of our third point. Ooh, mouse is not working. Which is inclusion. Inclusion for us is sort of the underpinning of our approach to humanity. Inclusion is so important in our approach to product design. We have a whole product methodology called inclusive design. You can find it on this website, Microsoft.com Design Inclusive. There are toolkits, there are manuals, there are games and exercises that you can download and use yourself. And we've designed this methodology for the entire industry, not just technology, but any industry that wants to apply it, right, to be able to design experiences with inclusion in mind. Cortana Show Me was designed with this methodology because what we wanted to do was see how difficult it was for other people to use our experiences. We build them for ourselves, honestly. You know, we get paid to do these things every day, to poke apart windows, to understand what's going on in settings. And it turns out other people don't want to do that to the extent that we do. So what we did was design experiences for people who don't have time to go through settings the way that we do every day. It's recognizing that people have other priorities, other skills, other things that they want to accomplish in their day. We were excluding those folks, and technology like Cortana Show Me is designed to incorporate them or to include them in the experience. We also use the inclusive design methodology to create a framework for fighting bias in AI. So the inclusive design methodology started out with our approach to physical disabilities. But we quickly extended it and kept researching and realized that we needed to go into other areas, right? Like cognitive issues and things like bias in AI. Now, you've heard at this conference a lot of people talking about bias in AI. You've heard some egregious examples of people saying things like predictive policing getting out of control, right? Things like, I don't know if you've seen this on YouTube, but there was a famous case of a facial recognition camera that only recognized white people, but didn't recognize black people. So it would follow the white person around the camera, and then the black person would come into view, and the camera would do nothing, right? That's an example, if you see here up on the upper right, of data set bias. Data set bias, I'm not going to go into all 5 of these categories, but data set bias happens when you fail to include a diverse data set when you start creating your AI models, right? That's what happened with that camera. They only trained it on people like themselves, white people, and therefore ended up excluding people unintentionally. So the thing about AI and about monitoring AI is, I don't know if you're working on AI or thinking about working on AI, but you need to start with that intentional attitude towards fighting bias from the very beginning. Because the thing about AI is, once you start with a bias set, it only gets worse. This is a fairly innocuous looking number. It's 5 digits. What it is a postal code. It's a United States postal code. This happens to be the postal code for my neighborhood. What happened in a particular case was that people were using postal codes to determine eligibility for home loans. And so what the machine was doing was simply looking for the highest income postal codes, and what it ended up doing was excluding entire neighborhoods where people who were perfectly eligible for home loans were being excluded because they lived in a more economically diverse and racially diverse neighborhood. So something as simple as a postal code can end up injecting bias into your system. So when we think about inclusion, when we think about AI, this is not the thing you tack on at the end. It's the thing you need to think about from the beginning. You need to think about the humanity, that part of it, from the very beginning of your process. Because what happens with AI is it just learns on its own, propagates bias. Bias gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Because it says, oh, you know, here's a good zip code. I'll add other zip codes like that. So I'll only end up dealing with high-income neighborhoods, and I'll exclude vast swaths of low-income ones. If you're not monitoring that, and I think a lot of the work ahead with AI is monitoring and curating and understand what the models are doing, then you're going to end up creating bias on a very large scale. Let's talk about focus. Focus is something that we have learned about quite a bit in this conference this week. We've learned about attention, about mental health, and it's something that I'm super passionate about. We've done a lot of work in this arena to understand how people approach focus. We've talked to experts, interruption scientists, people who are challenged every day to maintain focus. So I'm gonna show you a quick video and show you some of the research that we've done.
The way I focus has changed tremendously since losing my eyesight. I pop in my earbuds and I sort of shut the rest of the world out and get lost in a trance. Anything more than one standard sound in the background can really compromise my ability to focus and stay precise on my task.
I am currently researching with the Berkman Klein Center of Internet and Society at Harvard University. What I do is look at the interaction between humans and technology and how that influences culture. Hello, everyone. I'm going to do a workshop on calm technology. So we live in this era of interruptive technology. And it's not just interruptive in that we're getting alerts all the time. An alert can be anything. So let's think about how many notifications you might get during a day. Hey, here's a new calendar appointment, here's a new email, this thing has been done, there's a text message, somebody added photos to the Dropbox, there's another Snapchat, scroll up, new, 20 more emails. Technology should consider social norms. And how do we make that technology polite?
The most frustrating thing is when a pop-up comes up, and sometimes they're not coded right, and they lock up my screen. So I either have to do one of two things. If I'm fortunate enough to have my partner around, then he will come in and, I got this. But again, at 53 years old, I resent having to ask somebody to help me click and point away from it. And then if I was alone, I would have my entire day screwed.
Well, when I came to New York, the city itself is loud. People talk loud, and there are many noises, like especially the subway. In Japan, people tend to hate the noise coming from the computer or even a cell phone. So people, they usually turn it off, everything turned off. In Japan, that's really, really rude thing that make any kind of noise in subway or in public. When I did a translating job at home with my computer, I really have to focus. I always have any kind of notification sound off. I need to deal with Japanese and English. There are some language issue, like the English words that I don't know and it pops up. I don't know what's going on. Sometimes I freaked out because the computer is trying to tell me something, like my computer is in danger or something. And then, what, do I need to do something at this moment? And then most of the time it turns out it's just nothing. It breaks my concentration entirely. If I don't have a concentration, I cannot achieve what I need to achieve in my life.
I remember the exact moment that I was told that I had ADHD. I think I cried because for the first time, there was this thing that had a name that fully described who I was. I experienced a lot of difficulty interacting with technology myself, and so I have a very personal connection to Microsoft. So a big question is, how do you know when the appropriate time is? How do you know what the appropriate mode is? When you need to interrupt somebody, what does that actually look like? If I'm trying to focus on something and I'm interrupted, I feel legitimately really upset. My temperament is different. And ultimately, my hope is that people can understand the temperament of somebody who has a problem focusing to help create products that allow us to maintain a sustained level of concentration. As experienced creators, we can want to add a lot of new features into a particular solution. And we're at this point in time, particularly with a methodology like inclusive design, to critically ask ourselves questions about what's needed, why it's needed, and how whatever it is that you're making will actually interact with a person's mind and a person's body.
So we can look at your attention in different ways. You have your primary focus in front of you. That's high resolution. But if we look at the secondary and tertiary attention, it's not just our visual, it's also our hearing, it's also touch. Technology should use the least amount of our attention and only when necessary. So if a good designer gets you to your goal in the least amount of moves, then a calm designer gets you to the goal with the least amount of mental distraction. So we need the opposite of interruptive technology. We could consider the idea of a calm technology. A good tool is invisible, and by invisible, we mean that it doesn't intrude on your focus. You focus on the task instead of the tool. Calm technology, this concept from the 80s and 90s, said the scarce resource in the 21st century won't be technology. This will all be really cheap. The thing that will be the scarcest resource will be our attention.
So if you think about that, about what we just heard about, there are a couple of takeaways for me. We tend to think in volume, like we send out a bunch of notifications, we send out a bunch of experiences, we judge them by how well they do, by volume, by bulk. But just one thing done incorrectly, one message can knock off somebody's entire day, right? Those are the kinds of experiences that we create. So what I'm thinking about is kind of a challenge. It's an ask, it's a request that we can all take together, including us at Microsoft. How can we stop designing experiences that do nothing but compete for attention? How can we stop doing things that create these environments that are all making us incrementally more and more and more stressed out and more overloaded? How can we stop driving these experiences that are like pulling noise at us from all different directions? How can we stop thinking about individual features and individual products and instead thinking about environments? How can we start designing entire ecosystems and environments together, big companies like ours, small companies, if you're coming from a small company, even families? How can we start creating environments that are designed to create respect? One of the things that I've found incredibly inspiring in the last 3 days is hearing about different people's approach the New Zealand government, for example, some of the research that is done within the Maori community, like Sir Mason Duri's framework, Te Whara Tapawha. That is really an interesting framework and history that you have right here that is unique to your country that you can build on to start thinking about how can we apply the newest things, the latest things, AI or whatever it is, to create individual experiences that feel valid and respectful for individuals and teams and families. How can we start doing that in a way that starts creating respect? So I'm going to give you 3 things to start thinking about. Start thinking about doing right now. And I think about it in terms of things that we can do for ourselves, things that we can do with our teams and families, and things that we can do for our customers. So number 1, try something that you really, really, really will not do very well at all. This is sort of an exercise in remembering what personal humility looks like. Like, I'll give you an example. About 20 years, I don't know how long ago this was, I decided to audition for a Broadway touring production of Miss Saigon. If you knew me, you'd be laughing right now. There was an open casting call that had 3 requirements. You had to be Asian American, you had to be able to sing, rock and roll, and dance. And I figured, well, I've got 1. I could do the Asian American thing. That's 33% of the requirements. I got a 1 in 3 shot, right? And it went really, really badly. Like, I forgot the lyrics. Like, I handed the guy the music, and he had the words. The piano player. It was terrible. He was, like, helping me out, trying to mouth the words for me. So whenever I think about being sort of cocky about my customers, about the difficulties that they're going through, and I'm dismissive of that, all I have to do is look in the mirror, look at myself, and say, Miss Saigon. But I recommend doing something like that for you. I don't know what it is. Don't do that fire thing that we saw last night. Try to keep safe. But try something that you know you're not going to be good at. Number 2, set goals for culture. So when we set goals, we do things, we set goals, we make them part of our real work. So what are the things that you can do to improve your team culture right now, today? We've talked a lot at this conference about how to change culture, how to respect each other, how to create environments that encourage flourishing. Flourishing is a great word that, like Jackie McGuire was using earlier this week, that I think is a great thing that we can try. But we can start small. We can start small with little things. Like, how can you do something, for example, with the person in your team? If there's somebody who doesn't speak very much, how can you clear the way for them to give them a chance to voice their opinion? Maybe all it is that you stop interrupting people, right? Or stop talking over them. We do that a lot at Microsoft. And one of my personal goals, the thing that I wrote on my personnel review this year, is to make way for people to communicate. So start small and build it into your daily workflow. Put that into your Agile plan. How far are we going to get with culture in this 2-week sprint? Do something like that. Have a heart-to-heart with a customer about their challenges. That's the 3rd thing. And I want to do an experiment because we're doing okay on time. Let's take 3 minutes. I want you to pair up, talk to the person next to you, and remember that video that we just saw about focus? The thing about focus that is really interesting is that everybody's unique in that. Everybody needs different things. So I want you to pair up with somebody and ask them what it is that they need to achieve focus. What is their ideal environment? Okay, 3 minutes, go. Okay, let's bring it back. So the thing that I'm asking you to do, you just did, right? You spent time with another person understanding what it is that their challenge was around focus. And I'll bet, I couldn't hear any of your conversations, and we had a couple of guys over here who were focused on their work, so that's cool. They didn't hear me. That's fine. Hi, how you doing? Cool. They're focusing. So I would bet a lot that what you just found out about that other person was something different, right, from what you yourself need for focus. So that's the beauty of understanding the process of inclusive design and understanding kind of the key to building more respectful environments is that everybody's needs are different. And the thing that AI does, I think that has a great potential is for us to flip this convention of how we maybe can just keep sending more and more information to people and instead flip it so that individual needs can be addressed. The great potential of it is that we can stop building experiences designed for millions of people to consume in exactly the same way and build things that feel very individual and personal and empathetic to everyone's personal needs. You know, I'm going to go back to the All Blacks coach. Can I talk about the All Blacks for a second? Okay. There's this documentary on Amazon. I guess you don't have an Amazon here yet. I didn't come here to talk about Amazon, but there is a documentary about the All Blacks called All or Nothing, the New Zealand All Blacks, and they talk about last season, 2017 season. And there was a moment, I guess there was a critical rugby game. It was the All Blacks against the Argentine Pumas, and they call this guy off the bench, Lima Sapuaga. You know Lima. He gets called in on a critical moment. He's a reserve guy. He is to perform a critical kick, and right before they show him nailing it, they talk to him about it, and what he says is, these are the moments that you ask for. And I love the way he phrased that. These are the moments that you ask for, because I think about it in that terms of what are we doing to support people? What are we doing to create environments so at the moments that they ask for, during those moments, right, when they want to rise and flourish, what are we doing to support that? I feel in a way that we in the technology, we're the people with the water boy jackets. So that when the Lima Sopoakas of the world step up, we're there to support them and help them rise and help them flourish. So that is my message today. I want to leave you with a final word from Cortana. If you say, Cortana, hey, I think the presentation went well.
Excellent. Now you can stop picturing them in their underwear.
Thank you so much. I want to say this to you. Tēnā koutou. I am so grateful to be here with you today. I want to thank the folks at TechCom NZ for bringing and the folks at Microsoft NZ. Thank you for your attention. We saw that Amber Case called attention a resource, but it's also a gift. It's the most profound gift that you can give. So I appreciate the attention that you've given me today, and I ask you to keep giving that gift to your families, to yourselves, and to your customers. Thank you very much.